FLAMs. Okay, and I want to give you a mini lesson today on FLAMs and how to use them in fills, transitions, solos. I'll give you some exercises for that. I'm sure you all know the standard FLAM exercises, you know, single FLAM mill, FLAM tap, FLAM triplets, Swiss triplets, pataflaflas, you know, FLAM accents, flamadiddles, all that kind of stuff. So if you don't, go to Drum Channel and find out what the exact stickings are. I'll give you a quick rundown on a few of them. I'm going to break down what I played today. I just started randomly with an improvised phrase, and it went like this. One more time. Quite a complex construct of orchestration, melodic orchestration on the toms with accents on various cymbals in a very specific repetitive cycle. And so on. You get the idea. So it's a descending melodic pattern on the toms, and at the same time I'm playing those accents on all those different stack cymbals. And in order to pull something like that off, you have to learn to play FLAMs, and specifically flat FLAMs, which is another term for unison strokes. And the unison stroke, of course, is both hands, or a hand on a foot, exactly at the same point in time. So not a FLAM like this. A flat FLAM is both hands exactly at the same time. Okay? And make sure that they're completely tight and precise. So try not to flam, especially when you're playing on cymbals. You want a unison sound and not, or, you know, that's cool too in certain situations, but for these exercises, we want flat flams, really tight unison strokes. Okay? So go back to your basic rudimental hand technique exercises and practice things like FLAM taps. It's both right, both left, both right, both left, both right, both left. Both left, both right, both left, both right, both left. Of course, now I played FLAMs. Also practice the FLAM tap as flat FLAMs. So not with the FLAM, but unison strokes. That works really well on two instruments. Let's do that on the hi-hat and the snare drum. Speed it up. 3, 4. And as you can hear, those two patterns, each one of them 3 strokes, they overlap in the middle. So it's an interesting pattern when you orchestrate it and keep one hand on one drum, let's say snare drum, left hand, and move the right hand over tom-toms. Okay, and you can of course move the left hand around onto different drums too. You can orchestrate each hand, those 3 strokes in each hand, over different drums. Let's say, for example, the accent on a tom and the other 2 strokes with the right hand on the snare. I'm playing the left hand now on the hi-hat. And since it's 3 strokes, you can of course also use 3 instruments per hand. That's just 2 instruments, now 3. or whatever. 3 different instruments. You can also choose cymbals and orchestrate the left hand as well. So you get interesting overlapping orchestrated groupings. So for example, left hand plays and right hand plays. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you can do with flam taps when you play them as flat flams and orchestrate them. For example, left hand on just 2 instruments. The same pattern flam taps. But with a little bit of creativity, you can orchestrate them in a way that makes them seem not like flam taps. Okay, so for example, if you play repetitive strokes on one surface and different cymbal accents on the 8th notes, and the 8th notes being 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the flam tap between those 8 notes, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and if you then take those tom-tom strokes and orchestrate them, it sounds like inverted doubles orchestrated on the kit with 8th note accents. So it sounds like there's 2 drummers playing, in a way, when you orchestrate flam patterns. And that's what I like about them. It sounds like one drummer is going, and another drummer is going, Anyway, that's the beauty of flams and fills. It's a real concept. And you have to get into the intricacies and think about orchestration, sounds, pitches, and of course sticking. So they can be quite challenging. And this is just one example. This is just a flam tap. You can do the same thing with flam triplets. I'll just play flam triplets orchestrated over some stacks and the tom-toms. Okay, and you can of course work in cross-sticking patterns. Okay, or you can of course orchestrate all those flam patterns just on toms and snare, maybe. Of course, crashes. That works well, especially if you add the kick drum to the crashes. So you get 3 different sounds: kick, crash, and a tom-tom on the accent. And that's the flam triplet. You can do Swiss triplets, with 2 accents. That works well when you add the kick drum to the right hand in this case, along with the stacks. also orchestrate the right hand. Maybe different crashes. Etc. It's also cool when they put an insert between the two kick drum strokes. That's a good one. Take a pat of fla fla. Or so it's, or you can orchestrate that on splashes, or splashes and tom-tom combinations. And create, again, really interesting overlapping orchestrated patterns using these ideas. This is, for example, a combination of FLAM triplet and FLAM taps. FLAM triplet, FLAM tap, FLAM tap, FLAM triplet, FLAM tap, FLAM triplet, FLAM tap. Okay, and it doesn't sound so rudimental when you play them like that, and not just on one instrument, not just, you know. So I find those concepts interesting, and you can create some unusual creative fills with these ideas, and then you put them together. And you choose whatever random rudiments. I don't even think about the rudiments or the sticking or what it is. I've practiced them enough to kind of be able to insert them into the flow of what I'm doing, and I'll think more about orchestration, accents, and repetitive patterns that I think sound interesting, especially that combination of different pitches with different sounding cymbals, like that pattern I played early on the solo. That thing. It's all descending and lots of different stack sounds. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. That was my mini lesson for today. Get creative, use them in fills. And experiment. Also fives. I just noticed I played some fives, so you can also go 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 or 7. 5. Those are interesting. And if you just take one of these, say, I'm going to play kind of five-ish things and some threes maybe, which means kind of FLAM fives. Threes as in FLAM triplets. Then you can create some cool stuff. Which adds up to be 8 and fits perfectly in a 4/4 as 60 notes. So, anyway, experiment with those ideas, okay? Get back to your basics, rudiments, FLAM exercises, and then start orchestrating. A FLAM isn't just a FLAM tap, for example, a snare drum exercise. It's vocabulary. Anyway, I am veering off here. So, again, enjoy that, experiment with those ideas.